us an insight into kind of what would be happening if you were having this call from home? Because I think
juggle this meeting, firstly. Secondly, juggle the workload that's on the phone and that's oncoming. And then thirdly, juggle the wife and the kids.
So we've been chasing a moving target, but we really...
So far as how people in this lockdown period are accessing services.
Following it, I think we've been doing that parallel to the communications with regard to COVID-19. We've been assuring citizens that services will not be interrupted.
We had committed to periodically having these webinars in order to continue to talk amongst each other.
we arrive as communicators or recipients of communication messages.
Yesterday, Minister Mkhize was in our city to launch a 4,000-bed field hospital at an old Volkswagen plant.
So the urbans are fine, but when it goes to the township, there's quite a lot of movement of people. So that was where we were worried.
So, when you tell people in an informal settlement in Seven de Laan here in Hallenville to stay home, they look at you with very starry eyes.
Despite all the efforts of communicating and awareness, our numbers are still rising.
For granted, it is the issue of language. I think Themba is making an important point that we must look at the type of language that we are using.
I've heard people not taking government seriously for all sorts of reasons. So that's why it's important for these messages to also come from people who are not in government officially, leaders in communities.
The situation of people not being in a position to self-isolate because they stay in large numbers in one shack. So
The health, balancing health and the right to life with the economy. And
I think my biggest fear is that the work losses that happened over the past few months will be permanent.
Of the loss of productivity due to people being sick or being afraid.
Currently, as we start opening the economy, we also seeing the rise in terms of new infection.
COVID-19, the pandemic hit us when we were already at a very weak economic point. Is that cities cannot do it alone. That economic development requires partnership.
how comfortably do you dance with evidence-based data?
As mastering it, it's one element that we are integrating.
As a secondary city, obviously look to those who are established as to how they are doing things.
Open data agenda. What an open data agenda means, and I'm sure you're all very familiar with this.
The audience that you target with your communication is never rational, but mostly emotional.
We're asked to share this case study.
Our case study, which is about building relations with our stakeholders.
Thank you very much for joining us for what promises to be an exciting session on communicating the urban. I think firstly, I think we must just thank our esteemed panelists.
In a nutshell, the Integrated Urban Development Framework, which is our national urban policy.
The IEDF and especially the different levers were one of the more challenging pieces of work we've done.
The work we do is very much on the implementing side of the principles and ideas around the IEDF.
Majority of our attendees basically do not know about this national urban policy, and I think it speaks to perhaps maybe that issue of the messages that are coming out from these policies resonating with people.
It's really just important to kind of continuously make a concerted effort to build relationships and build trust with our communities continuously.
IEDF is for everyone. Urbanization affects you, whether you're civil society, whether you're in the private sector.
The whole buzz in communication these days is around storytelling, but actually story collecting is really where it's at.
Concept or idea of people at the center really coming into reality.
Communicate. It does actually include listening and more listening. It can be a top-down approach.
I'm guessing, have you written op-ed pieces or thought leader pieces before?
Platforms. Facebook is about engagement.